The purpose of this video is to educate workers in safe work practices when placing concrete with a concrete pump. It is designed to educate workers of areas that can be dangerous, how to disable the pump in an emergency, as well as safe hose handling techniques. This video is not meant to supersede the pump manufacturer's recommended operating procedures. The ACPA website, concretepumpers.com, has an array of safety information, including booklets and DVDs about concrete pumping safety, coworker safety, and ready-mixed driver safe practices around concrete pumps. Go to the Contractors tab. The booklets can be downloaded for free. Workers on a construction site should always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE. Proper PPE includes hard hat, safety glasses, hearing protection, clothing that doesn't hang loosely, gloves impervious to water when working in the concrete, proper footwear, steel-toed or at least good quality leather work boots, boots that are impervious to water when walking or standing in concrete, safety vest when working in high traffic areas, breathing mask when cement dust is present. All workers assisting with or working near the pump should know the location of the emergency stops and how to disable the pump in an emergency. Use clear and concise signals when backing in the ready-mix trucks and keep visual contact with the driver at all times. Never stand or walk between the ready-mix truck and the back of the pump. When handling the chutes on a ready-mix truck, always keep your hands clear of the pinch points near the hinges or between the end of the chute and the hopper. Explain to ready-mix drivers that they are not allowed to put concrete into the hopper until directed by the concrete pump operator. Doing so could cause a major delay of the pour, or worse, by creating a dangerous blockage. Ready-mix drivers should never wash out into the hopper without permission of the pump operator. Excessive water can cause segregation of aggregate that can likely create a blockage as it passes through the delivery line. The three-point rule should always be obeyed when climbing onto or off of the concrete pump, any ladder, scaffold, or other piece of job site equipment. That is, to have 2 hands and 1 foot or 2 feet and 1 hand in contact with a fixed object at all times. Never stand on, raise, or remove the hopper grates of the pump or allow anyone else to. This is considered the no-point rule. All components below the grate are capable of causing serious injury to the human body. It is the policy of the ACPA that if power lines are within 20 feet of the area, 50 feet above 350 kV to be poured, a spotter must be employed whose only job is to observe the movements of the boom and warn the operator if the boom approaches the danger zone. The spotter must understand his responsibilities and be able to judge 20 or 50 feet. Visual references, such as cones or flags placed on the ground at the specified distance, can be beneficial in making the determination. If no spotter is available, the operator should not pump the pour and should contact their office for further instructions. If you see any foreign material enter the hopper, warn the operator, or if necessary, disable the pump by depressing the E-stop. Do not reach into the hopper at any time. Never remove the water box covers of a pump unless the hydraulic system has been disabled and the operator has given you specific instructions. Plan the concrete placement to begin at the furthest point from the pump to allow the entire system to be primed at the start of the pour. This also avoids moving the boom over finished work and personnel later in the day. If system must be added during the pour, it must be lubricated prior to pumping to avoid blockages. It is recommended that the pump not be left unattended while operating. If the concrete pump operator is required to operate away from the machine at a position that doesn't allow the pump to be monitored, it is recommended that the pour supervisor designate a person to oversee the delivery of material into the hopper and warn the operator if any condition occurs that could affect the safe operation of the pump. The pour supervisor must verify that the designated person knows the proper steps to be taken if air or foreign objects enter the hopper. All personnel must stay a reasonable and prudent distance away from the discharge hose when any of the following occurs to avoid hose whip danger. When initially priming the pump for the start of the pour. Anytime the system has been opened to remove pipe or hose. Anytime the system has been opened to remove a blockage. After the pump has been relocated to a new setup area. Anytime the pump is about to restart after gravity has forced drainage from the boom, or whenever there is a delay in the placing of the concrete, especially if the boom tip section is at a vertical or near vertical position. Whenever the pump operator is having difficulty pumping the mix and is reversing the pump repeatedly, especially if there is any unusual hose movement. Anytime the pump hopper has been allowed to go empty and air has been drawn into the valve and material cylinders. When the pump operator is cleaning it out. If air is in the line, it can cause the hose to whip violently. Only approach the hose when the concrete is flowing smoothly and the operator has approved your approach. Never allow the pump hopper to go empty. Instruct the ready-mix driver to keep the hopper full enough to at least cover the valve. If the hopper is allowed to run empty, immediately disable the pump and inform the operator. Be sure that both the pump operator and the hose man agree on the proper signals. To help prevent serious injury to the hose person, use a single-ended hose, known as an end hose, on the discharge end of a placing boom or delivery line. An end hose does not have a second metal end. When handling the discharge hose on a boom pump, never hug the hose. Hold the hose at arm's length, allowing it to move freely. Never attach any type of device to the end of the hose to slow down the flow of the concrete. If the hose whips, these devices are deadly. There are several safer options available to accomplish such a slowdown. These options include reducers, reducing hoses, flat hoses, placing the tip section in a horizontal position, slowing the pump output, and others. When using flat hoses, be sure they are pressure rated for the pump you are using. If using a flat hose, it is recommended that it not be used as a tremie in a wall or column, as it may fold over when being lowered into the wall or get into a narrow space where it cannot expand, which can create a dangerous condition. Always walk forward when handling the discharge hose. Never walk backwards. Never position yourself between the discharge hose and any fixed object, such as a wall or column. Direct the boom operator to keep the discharge hose between the waist and knee high. Do not allow the hose to touch the deck, where it could create dangerous back pressure or land on your foot. Never hold the hose on your shoulder. The hose gets much heavier when filled with concrete, and if the hose kinks, it could seriously injure you. It may be advisable to use hose saucers that are placed under the hose connections to keep the clamps from catching on rebar or wire mesh and to reduce the friction when dragging the hose. On deck pours, use hooks or a stout rope attached 6 to 12 inches from the discharge end of the hose to facilitate moving the end of the hose. If a rope is used, Be sure to monitor the condition of the rope on the bottom side of the hose, as the rope will wear out when repeatedly dragged over the deck and rebar. Be sure the hose is supported close enough to the end of the hose to keep the hose from kinking. If hooks are used, be sure they are not sharp enough to cut or tear the hose. Do not attempt to hold the hose in your hands or at your waist unless it is 2.5 inches in diameter or smaller. When lowering the hose into a wall or column, keep your hands clear so the hose or a clamp does not hit or pinch your hand. Never lower the discharge hose into a block wall or ICF wall, because when the wall fills, it will force the hose out of the wall, possibly striking workers or causing them to fall. Do not remove end hoses to shorten the system if they are going to have to be added back later. Maneuver the hose so that several pieces of pipe can be removed at one time to shorten the system. Never open the system unless the pump operator instructs you to do so. Even then, confirm that he has reversed the pump to remove any pressure that might remain. The ACPA approved hand signal for relieving pressure is 2 taps to the back of your head. When encountering a blockage in the system, you need to be sure the pump operator has stopped the pump and reversed the pump to remove any pressure on the line. Use a shovel or other tool to open the clamps to avoid splattering any concrete into your eyes. Remove the plugged piece of system from the line. Never look into a hose or pipe that is plugged. Be sure the plug is removed from the system before reassembling. Keep all personnel a reasonable and prudent distance away from the discharge hose, and start pumping forward slowly until all air is removed from the placing line. Whenever there is a problem, ask for instructions from the pump operator. Never sit on, stand on, or straddle the pipeline when it is in use or under pressure. If system will be removed during the pour, have a plan to clean it after it is removed. Just emptying it and leaving it for later is not sufficient. If necessary, take it back to the pump operator so it can be cleaned. Never reattach pipe or hose without using gaskets in the clamps. These gaskets prevent grout from escaping from between the pipes and leaving large sections of exposed aggregate, which can create a dangerous blockage. Lift with your legs, not with your back. Lifting with your back increases the pressure on your lower back by 4 times. Get help when emptying hoses and pipe. A 10-foot, 5-inch pipe full of concrete weighs over 300 pounds. A 10-foot, 5-inch hose weighs nearly the same, 275 pounds. Never use air to clean out the pipeline unless no other practical method is available. When cleaning out with air, remove all hoses and unrestricted elbows and pay strict attention to what the operator tells you to do. If the attempt to clean out the system with air is not successful, be very careful, as a dangerous condition exists and must be handled properly. Never remove a blockage with compressed air. The pump can generate much more pressure than an air compressor, so if the pump can't move it, air never will. The stored energy generated by the compressed air creates an extreme hazard. It is always safer to use a shovel or other tool to open clamps, as this keeps your face and body parts out of harm's way. Under no circumstances should anyone ever attempt to operate the boom or outriggers unless they are a qualified concrete pump operator. Never ask the operator to drag hose with the boom. It is not recommended to hang more than 1 hose or 1 hose with a reducer from the tip of any placing boom. Doing so usually exceeds the manufacturer's maximum tip weight requirement. Proper care and maintenance of concrete delivery system is very important. All hoses have a limited life, and the user must be alert to signs of impending failure, particularly in concrete pumping when the conditions of service include high working pressures. Because of the environment they are used in, hoses can be very easily damaged, even when used properly. Knowing this, it is important that all personnel around the site understand the following guidelines. Avoid beating on concrete pumping hose or pipe with a hammer or other object. This impact damages the reinforcing material and will lead to premature hose failure and rupture. Never use hose with frays or breaks, or with the braiding or reinforcing exposed. Check both the outer cover and inner liner. A hose with exposed braiding is a guarantee it will not support its rated capacity. Always use the correct hose for the job. A hose should not be used in applications where its rated working pressure is exceeded. Never kink the hose when the pump is operating. Kinks cause blockages and pressure spikes as well as weakening the hose. The hose may straighten violently and cause personal injury. Always use a safety sling or cable across couplings suspended over personnel. Use a minimum of one sling for each component hanging from the boom. Verify that the hose cover is visible through the ferrule inspection hole. Hoses should be inspected on a daily basis. Typical concrete pumping hoses have rubber properties that resist sun damage and oxidation. To maximize the lifespan of a concrete pumping hose, store unused hoses in a clean, dry, dark space. Concrete pumping hoses are designed for pumping concrete. Consult the hose company if any other product is pumped through its hoses. It is imperative that hoses are inspected regularly. Before and after each job is the most practical time for inspection. On longer jobs, hoses should be checked throughout the job for any type of wear or damage. The following inspection criteria provide minimum levels of user action to detect signs indicating hose deterioration, loss of performance, and failure. If you are unsure whether or not hose is safe, consult your hose manufacturer. The following methods of inspection are recommended. Visual inspection of the cover. Any defect which damages the reinforcing plies, wire, or fabric will severely reduce the ability of the hose to withstand pressure. If the hose has a damaged cover, the hose must either be discarded or returned to the factory for the damaged area to be cut out. When examining the cover, pay close attention to bulges, kinks, soft spots, cuts, or abraded areas which may indicate broken or displaced reinforcement. Remember, the cover of a hose does play a role in the pressure handling characteristics of that hose. Visual inspection of the liner. Hoses with excessively worn liner areas must be discarded. Typically, the first 12 inches of liner adjacent to the hose body is the high wear point. Some applications or possibly damage to the hose cause wear further down from the hose body. A flashlight should be used to examine further down the hose liner for signs of exposed reinforcement, loose plies, cuts, gouges, etc. Smaller diameter, long hoses are difficult for even a flashlight to illuminate. In those applications, some external clues can predict heavy liner wear. Check the weight of a hose and compare it to a new hose. Check the feel of a hose. Is it flimsy in nature when compared to a new hose? A hose that exhibits these characteristics probably had its liner worn past its practical lifespan. This video was presented by the American Concrete Pumping Association in cooperation with the American Society of Concrete Contractors. In addition to the different videos and booklets available in both English and Spanish mentioned at the beginning of this video, the ACPA has a comprehensive concrete pump operator certification program, as well as a training program for new operators. It is recommended that you specify ACPA certified operators for your projects. A list of companies that employ certified operators can be found on the ACPA website. The manufacturer's recommendations supersede any and all information contained in this video.